Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. We are continuing on with the podfic of the fanfiction Baked with Love. Today, we're going to be doing chapters 5 and 6. Chapter 5, Low and Slow. The morning rush never came. Kirishima showed up early, half expecting another crowd and a repeat of yesterday's controlled chaos. Instead, the bakery was quiet, still warm with the scent of cinnamon and coffee, but slower and softer. The few locals who wandered in took their time. No shouting, no lines, just the low hum of ovens and the occasional clang of a tray being set down with more force than necessary. Bakugo handed him an apron without a word. No lectures, no threats, just a grunt and a gesture towards the front. It wasn't much, wiping tables, restocking napkins, pretending not to read the chalkboard covered with passive-aggressive menu notes. But the calm gave space for something else, something quieter. Kirishima moved through the morning like he was supposed to be there, and Bakugo didn't kick him out. So he took a risk. "You always know you wanted to open a bakery?" he asked casually, like he wasn't studying every twitch of Bakugo's expression. Bakugo didn't look up. "No." Then silence. A full beat passed, stretched long and awkward in the warm stillness of the shop. Kirishima leaned against the counter, pretending to consider the coffee machine like it held answers. I would have guessed, I don't know, something physical. Personal trainer, pro fighter. Another grunt, less aggressive this time. More like amusement buried deep. "Guess I was wrong," Kirishima said, easy and light, like it didn't matter either way. "I get it, though. I always loved photography. Thought I'd become something like a travel photographer. Ended up chasing stories with a lot more pastries than I expected." He didn't expect a response. He just let the words settle, gave Bakugo the space. A few seconds passed, then finally a voice from the other side of the kitchen. Not loud, not sharp, just flat and honest. "My mom's a chef. Fancy high-end stuff. Michelin stars and shit." Kirishima blinked. He didn't move. Bakugo kept his back turned, focused on the dough in front of him. "I wanted to do something different, something simple and honest." Another paused. She hated that. Kirishima blinked. The words hung in the air like they weren't meant to be spoken out loud. Not here, and not to him. He didn't say anything right away, just watched Bakugo's hands move, pressing, folding, and working the dough with the kind of quiet focus you couldn't fake. "She ever try your stuff?" he asked eventually. Bakugo didn't look up. "Once." The words landed like a dropped plate. Kirishima exhaled slowly. "She must have loved it." A beat. "She said it was fine." Kirishima stared at him. The man who made a scone so good it made him question his life choices. The man whose pastries were borderline spiritual experiences, if the internet was anything to believe. Fine? He shook his head, almost a laugh, not at Bakugo, but at the absurdity of it. "She's out of her mind," he said. Bakugo didn't respond, didn't look up, just kept working, jaw tight. But he didn't leave the room. He didn't tell Kirishima to shut up. And that, somehow, said everything. But the movement of his hands slowed just slightly, and the tension shifted from muscle to air. Kirishima swallowed, feeling the weight of it. No wonder he's like this. Built his whole life out of flour and fire, and the one person who should have been proud didn't even try to be. He didn't know what that kind of dismissal would do to a person, but looking at Bakugo now, shoulders tight, chin down, completely still for just half a second, he had a guess. And yeah, okay, he'd come here for a story, maybe a wild quote or a viral moment, but this wasn't just a story anymore. But it mattered more than anything he had planned to put on paper. Chapter 6. Flash in the Pan. Kirishima had been showing up to the bakery every morning for nearly 2 weeks before he realized he hadn't taken a single photo in days. Not because he forgot, he just didn't want to break the rhythm. There was something about the quiet, the heat, the way Bakugo would grunt and shove a coffee at him without asking how he liked it. They had fallen into a routine, one Bakugo never acknowledged but never interrupted either. Kirishima stocked napkins without being told, learned which trays to pull when the timers went off. They bickered over music, invented a whole backstory for their weirdest regular, and had somehow developed a shared language of eye rolls and eyebrow raises that said more than most people could manage in full paragraphs. And somewhere between the cinnamon rolls and burned fingertips, it stopped feeling like research and started feeling like something else. Like home, maybe? He hadn't touched his article since that first draft, not because he didn't know what to say, but because he was starting to care too much to say it. He pulled out his camera that night, half thinking he'd finally write the damn piece. Instead, he found dozens of photos he didn't remember taking. Bakugo mid-laugh, okay, half-laugh, flower on his cheek. A light caught in the window, a kid smiling through a sugar high. It wasn't food photography, it was life. He didn't upload any of them. The next morning, Kirishima walks in like always. Coffee, apron, the little domestic ritual. They're getting along. It's easy now. Flirting without saying it's flirting. So when Bakugo muttered, not even looking up from where he was kneading the dough, "You ever gonna leave or are you just haunting this place now?" It hit harder than it should have. Kirishima's smile falters, just for a second. Then he recovers, but his heart fumbled a step. "What, getting tired of me already?" Bakugo snorted. "Just saying, for someone who said he was just passing through, you've been passing through for a long-ass time." And that was all he said. That was all it took. The dough slammed against the counter. The silence afterwards stretched like cooling sugar. Kirishima didn't flinch, but the pause before he answered was just a fraction too long. "Guess I got stuck," he said, light and easy. "Happens when the pastries are so good." Bakugo didn't laugh, didn't even look up, just kept kneading the dough on the counter. "You always hang around this long when you're just taking pictures?" This time, Kirishima hesitated for real. "Sometimes," he said, "depends on the subject." Bakugo's eyes flicked up, sharp and unreadable. "Huh." Kirishima tried to smile again, but it didn't quite reach. "You saying you want me gone?" Bakugo's voice stayed level, but the edge was impossible to miss. "Didn't say that, just trying to figure out what the hell you're really doing here." Kirishima didn't answer right away. He stared at the words "eat it or beat it." It was easier to look at that than to meet Bakugo's eyes. Finally, he exhaled. "I'm a writer." Bakugo didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there. Hands stayed pressed into the dough, fingers clenched tighter than before. Kirishima pressed on gently. "I mean, I take photos too, that's not a lie. But I came here because I heard about this bakery with a reputation, a guy who tells customers off and still sells out before noon." Bakugo's jaw clenched, and his voice, when it came, was flat. "So what? This was research?" Kirishima nodded once. "Yeah, at first." The silence stretched between them. "You said you weren't a blogger." "I'm not," Kirishima said quickly, lifting his hands. "I didn't lie. I said I was passing through. That part was true." Bakugo's eyes finally found his, and they weren't angry. They were hurt, which was worse somehow. "You lied by omission." "You glared at me like I kicked your cat," Kirishima said, a weak attempt at levity. "I wasn't exactly going to lead with, 'Hi, I write think pieces about angry bakers.'" Bakugo didn't flinch, but his voice went low. "You came here to write about a freak show. What, changed your mind when I gave you a cookie?" Kirishima swallowed. His voice softened. "I came here for a story, but I stayed because of you." That hung in the air, quiet and heavy. Bakugo said nothing. He wiped his hands on his apron, not quite clean, and he walked into the kitchen without another word, the door swinging shut behind him. Kirishima stood there, hands still half raised as the silence in the bakery settled around him like dust. For the first time since arriving, he didn't feel like he belonged here. All right. Thank you, friends, for listening to this next piece. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. We'll be continuing on the next time we get together, I guess is a good way to put it. And I hope you come back for the next part. So I'll see you soon.